Hi, I'm Joe.
And I'm Mike.
And you're listening to How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up? The podcast. And this week we'll be reviewing There Will Be Mud.
I think you mean Mudbound.
Tomato potato. Hey everyone, and welcome to How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up, featuring two guys getting Jim Leahy'd and reviewing movies in a weekly podcast form.
Rest in peace, Jim Leahy. Thank you to Matt PD on Facebook for that synonym suggestion that is morbid, and I think he might have given it before he died.
When did he die?
It was pretty recently. It was like a month ago, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe two.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've got a big stockpile of synonyms now. Thank you so much for submitting those. And if you want to submit more, you can send us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all our social media, email, Gmail, all that stuff. We'd love to hear from you guys and get you featured on the podcast. But Joe, do you want to introduce somebody?
Yeah. To delay no further, betwixt us, we have Ross Weisman.
Hi.
I nailed it.
Yeah, you did. Oh my God, I've been on the podcast beforehand. Well, I've told people beforehand, and then they look at my face and then say it wrong. I'm like, God, come on.
Weisman.
We went over
got
this.
It. Ross Weisman. So we met through the Facebook or the Philadelphia
Podcast Society.
Society.
Is that what it's called?
Sure.
Yeah.
Shout out to them.
It's just a void of people being like, here's my episode
this week.
And no one likes any of the posts.
I'll like them once in a while because I'm like, oh, sure. But
they better like mine now. So that became an important tool. And tonight we will also be recording an episode of your podcast. Would you like to tell us about your podcast?
Yeah,
as well?
sure. So it's called Kid Flicks. It's spelled like Netflix, but the word kid instead of net. It's a catchy little tagline.
Very clever, yeah.
So many times in my life, I'm like, I'm just going to call something this, and I forget that I will have to explain how to spell it. But basically, it's a friend of myself, usually a comedian friend. Every week, we dissect and hyperanalyze kids' movies. So almost like your podcast, except just grown adults paying money on Amazon to watch kids' movies. Like, oh my goodness, you don't know how your life is when you're watching until you're watching like Shrek 2 by yourself on like a Thursday afternoon. But
we know because we had to watch Boss Baby.
Yes.
Ooh, how was that?
Oh, not good.
It's not good.
I've been trying to review that on my podcast, but I cannot get somebody to watch it with me. So
Oh man, I would have done Boss Baby. No, it was actually our episode on it was pretty terrible, just because it was not pretty terrible. It's actually one of our more popular episodes, but it was just like. It's hard to talk about sometimes, like kids movies.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, why I started the podcast was I love kids movies because when they're good, I mean they're transcendent.
Right.
Like Toy Story obviously is a big example, but then when they're terrible, they're so just pandering and just like the laziest cash grab. Like have you seen
Toilet humor?
Yeah. Like Hoodwinked 2?
No.
I haven't seen Hoodwinked 2, but I was inspired to start the podcast partly based on the trailer for Hoodwinked 2.
What happens
Is
in
that like the
Hoodwinked?
fairy tale one?
Yeah,
Where it's like all the
yeah,
different-
okay, yeah.
Yeah, and the first movie I remember liking, even though the animation is disgusting. But the second one, it's like a secret agent movie, and there's like two different fart jokes in the trailer.
Oh,
So that makes you think, what fart jokes are in the movie? They're like, we gotta save that for the movie. But yeah.
The new Gnomes trailer is like that, where it's like, how many like butt and fart and poop jokes can we get?
Are
in
they
this
like trying to be
trailer?
a franchise? Because there was only Romeo and Juliet,
Yeah.
I think. So they're like trying to be like the gnomes
Well,
do
now
the
it's like
classics.
Sherlock Gnomes. Like they're just trying to get all these like gnome puns in there.
Yeah, they're gonna do a Daddy's Home line.
Daddy's
No.
Gnome.
That's good. You should be writing for the No movies.
I should. And then they do a rent parody, and the tagline is "Gnome Day, but today."
Which kids just love that reference.
I was a theater kid, and every theater kid from 97 until today is just been like, oh my God, let's try to do Rent this year. And my high school finally did it. And there were good people in it, but as a whole, it's just like 17-year-olds grappling with the AIDS crisis. It doesn't translate perfectly on stage.
But where can we find Kid Flicks for those who want to listen?
Wherever you get your podcasts.
Wherever podcasts are sold.
Well, I started I put it manually on iTunes and SoundCloud and Stitcher, but it just kind of showed up on every other
We've
app.
noticed that too. It's very strange.
Yeah, so I don't know what little robots are working, but thanks for getting me. Thanks for getting me on even the paid podcast apps. That one where it's like $3 or whatever. I
that
forget
we're
what
not
it's
getting
called.
paid for.
Yeah. Oh no. Of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, tune in for our episode, which should be out already by the time this one comes out.
This is coming out on the 25th. I release every Monday.
Perfect.
Very
and we're doing
cool. We
Iron
do every
Giant.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that'll be fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a spoiler, but it's weird in my head because we're recording this one first.
All right, so what are we drinking? I bought this, and I forgot what the name of the beer is. This is from Sigmeister, which is in Hackettstown, which is nearby where I used to live. We were trying to get them to sponsor us for a while, but they, how was it?
No,
Was that broken already?
no, I half opened it before, and then it was like, oh, we're not opening it yet.
Oh no, it's fine. Yeah, open it.
away.
We're just talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, but this is the Prospector Amber Ale, which I've had a few of theirs at the actual brewery, but not this one before.
The color is interesting. It's it's almost yellow. I mean, that's just because I spilled a little.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of their cans, it's like
that is-
the solid color will be different, and then they have that
Oh, but even the color of the
tan-
beer.
Tan,
it's
the beer is what you're talking about.
The taste is interesting. It's I usually drink more pale ales and stuff like that, but this is it's almost sweet.
Yeah, I like this. Huh.
Yeah, there's sort of maybe a caramel in there somewhere. I'm really bad at describing
No.
what beer tastes like.
Whenever somebody's like, "Oh, it has an oaky type thing," I'm like, yeah, sure. How do you know what trees taste like?
I'm sure people hate this part of the podcast, or we're just struggling
describing the beer that we're drinking that you can't
They're
even
just hitting
see.
the 15 button over and over again.
My mom just saw Ladybird, so she doesn't listen to the podcast much, I guess, just because,
She's not proud of you as a son.
no, yeah, exactly.
Well, no, I can attest. Just trying to describe how to download or listen to a podcast is insane to a.
Oh, it is. Well, she's super into podcasts, though. But anyway, she was like, I guess I should listen to the Ladybird, and she's like, my God, could you have talked about we're describing we bought
Those were unique beers, though.
we bought this
Seagram's
multi-pack of different Seagrams, the malt kind of flavorful teenage girl drinks, basically. And we're all describing these this acai blueberry flavor is pretty good. I can just picture everyone listening to that being like, no, wait till you hear because we all tried different flavors. We're
Yeah, there's
okay,
four
so
different
I've
descriptions.
Passing them around. Wait, I want to try.
So I've
Coconut's
got
pretty
pina
good.
colada, and I've got strawberry daiquiri.
Oh, that reminds me of a fun game that you all can play at home. Didn't know you were going to learn a game. So I went to I was telling you actually before we start recording, I used to go to a summer camp that's actually not too far from where we're recording, and it was it's a very socialist camp. So we used to play this game called Capitalist Pig. It's super fun. You can play at home. Basically, you pass around a food or a drink, let's say those Seagram beers.
Right.
And you just pass it around and everybody is taking sips and stuff. And the goal is not to finish it. And if you're the one that finishes it, you're the capitalist pig. And everybody points at you and calls you a capitalist pig.
Oh, what is that? Just amongst the campers that you play that, or does the camp counselor be like, and now we're gonna play capitalist pig?
Well, it's the campers play it, and it's a thing that a counselor at one point was like, oh, here's a fun game. And it's just at mealtime, it's hey, we're having latkes. Here you go.
Right. And
That's
you guys
fantastic.
all have oral herpes now.
I mean, hey, that's what summer camp's for.
Right, yes.
We're gonna get it anyway.
Where else are you gonna get oral herpes besides summer camp, huh? That sounds like a fun camp, though.
Yeah, I went for 10 years.
Wow. Is it just like, it was a summer camp?
Yeah, it was an
Socialist
overnight.
summer camp.
A
Yes.
labor Zionist socialist overnight camp. So many
They had
very
nothing to lose but their chains.
Oh, man.
All right, so what are we doing this week? We're doing Mudbound.
Mudbound.
You want me to read that IMDb description?
I would love for you to
Joseph?
I would love for you to read this IMDb
I would love to
description.
read it for you.
Thank you. I would love for me to love...
I'd love that too.
Yeah.
Two men return home from World War II to work on a farm in rural Mississippi where they struggle to deal with racism and adjusting to life after war.
That's pretty much true.
That's pretty accurate.
Sort of accurate,
But like I wrote this in my notes, but the I was so confused about this movie until like 45 minutes in when Mary J. Blige started working for the family, and then you kind of start seeing these people come home from war, because like the
Right, yeah.
I was very lost the first long
Same.
part of this movie.
It takes a while to establish it. It was just like I was about to work in something that is a well-written description. I was reading, like, I think NPR they did like a small review on it on like Fresh Air or something, and the guy was trying to, I forget, it was somebody from, what is the LA
Times?
paper? Yeah, I guess it was the LA whatever. But he was trying to describe the plot. He's like, in a film that takes place before and during and after World War II, and I was like, oh man, this is this is a hard movie to
so it
describe.
takes place in the years around World
Yes,
War II.
Yeah, exactly. The past, the present, and the future of World War II. I was like, okay. But
It's
yeah,
like basically Cloud Atlas.
yes. Have you ever seen Cloud Atlas?
I know what it's about, but it's on my list.
Yeah, I've never seen it.
Oh,
but
you've
I-
never
I've
seen it either? It's
It's like,
actually
I know
pretty
what
good.
it's
Yeah. I get it.
Doesn't
From
Tom
the people
Hanks
who-
do blackface in it?
Yeah. Something like that, I think, yeah. But
Count me in.
it just shot straight to the top of my list. If there's anything I've ever wanted to see,
I'll watch it tonight.
God damn it, it's Tom Hanks in blackface.
Oh my god! Speaking of what, weird segue, but I was watching like just SNL clips last night. Did you know that Jimmy Fallon did blackface on SNL?
Oh no,
He did like he does a Chris Rock impression.
Oh no. Yeah, I know that
Do
impression.
the Roots
yeah.
know?
I think
Somebody
just
tell the
close up on Questlove shaking his head. But it's so weird. It was like from the 90s when he was on SNL, and it's like it was like when Kathy Lee left Live with Regis and Kathy Lee, and so they were looking for the new replacement, and Jimmy Fallon saunters on in like blackface and does not a great Chris Rock. Like, if his Chris Rock was better, maybe.
Was that the joke, though? Was the joke that he was...
No. Not at all. He's like friends with Chris
Lorne
Rock.
Michaels. So hesitant to hire people of color. Oh, boy.
So I don't have a lot of notes for this Joe Notes. Usually one of us will catch up everybody on just the basics. So this is directed by Dee Rees. I think that's how you say it.
I think so.
Yeah, I hope so.
I'd be really surprised if there's another way to say it.
Dwaraz.
Maybe it could be like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how else you would say it. But previously, she's really only directed a film called Pariah, and I think that was based off a short, Pariah. And she's also directed an episode of Empire. And
How
Yeah.
old is she?
40.
Let me see. Is she 40?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Boom.
Damn, you're on it. So anyway, the film stars Carey Mulligan, Jason Clarke, Jason Mitchell, Mary J. Blige, Rob Morgan, Jonathan Banks, and Garrett Hedlund.
Is Carey Mulligan first billed?
She is, or at least according to it's interesting because the Wikipedia description, it's her character. It's like everything's around her. But honestly, there were so many long stretches. It was like she was the anchor point of the movie until the two men came home from war. Then I was like, okay, forget about you.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, and this is such a gigantic cast too. You'd think it would be a little more strained, but anyway, Mudbound premiered at 2017 Sundance Film Festival earlier this year. And it was released on Netflix, where you guys can go watch it now. Who doesn't have a Netflix account, huh? You guys don't have to go out and pay a fucking movie theater ticket price.
You have no excuse not to listen to this episode.
Not to listen to this episode. Yeah, but it came out November 17th, 2017. There was something where... Sorry, my notes are like all over the place. But anyway, it's nominated for tons of awards. Critics' Choice Awards, Golden Globe Awards, where...
I've got them all written down if you want.
Oh, okay.
Rattle them off for us.
So here we go. Critics' Choice. We got Best Supporting Actress for Mary J. Blige, Best Ensemble, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Cinematography. Golden Globe, Best Supporting Actress, again, Mary J. Blige. Best Original Song, which I don't remember which song.
I think it's during the credits because Mary J. Blige wrote a song for the movie.
I guess I should have figured that she would have done a song for this. At the Independent Spirit Awards, it won the Robert Altman Award because I guess they give that out and there's just one. There's no nominees that it's competing against. But I couldn't figure out what the Robert Altman Award is for.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
For a job well done.
just
you guys did
give an
great.
award.
Here you go.
And then the Screen Actors Guild got Outstanding Performance by a Cast in a Motion Picture, Outstanding Performance by a Female Actor in a Supporting Role for Mary J. And then probably a possible nominee for the Oscars. It's hard to say at this point. I feel like it's starting to fall below the bubble. It's like lost steam in some of the recent weeks.
I mean, I'll say I had not heard of this movie until, excuse me, until you and I were corresponding about what we were going to do for this episode. Like,
right.
And because I know Netflix, whenever you log in, it always at the top and like near the top, they have all these, they showcase their originals. Like this did not come across my page once.
They put out so much original stuff now that like they can now just put the stuff that relates to what you've watched before at Netflix.
Which is crazy.
So you get all kids movies.
They really want me to watch the series of unfortunate events. I watched the first two and I was like, okay.
Yeah. I liked the movie so much that I'm hesitant to watch the series.
Honestly, so did I.
It's so good.
People gave it so much crap, and Neil Patrick Harris does a great job as Count Olaf, but also, I mean, like, it makes sense that Jim Carrey would be...
I don't want to see anyone follow it up. Jim Carrey was fine as Count Olaf.
Like, I guess their pratfall was... their pitfall, not pratfall. Their pitfall was like... They tried to squeeze three books into an hour-and-a-half movie.
Right.
And I think that's kind of where it went off the rails a little bit. Because definitely the pacing of the show is a little bit better.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Spread it out, yeah.
I never watched the movie or the series. I loved the books, though. I was too afraid to watch it. This didn't come out too early, but I remember being a kid and being severely disappointed by the Harry Potter movies, which I know is...
Really?
Yeah, and I still don't really like them to this day. My girlfriend loves them. Everybody I know loves them.
Not me. That's why we're
you
friends,
don't like
Joe.
it? Oh, okay, yeah, that's true.
Did you go to Harry Potter World?
No, I haven't.
I've been there, yeah.
The thing is, I love the Harry Potter books or whatever, and I'm sure I'd love Harry Potter World. But yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I'm just like, I don't know if I wanted to see this on screen. I kind of really enjoyed my relationship with it as a book. I don't know. Speaking of, Mudbound was a book.
Wow.
Is that obvious with all the narration in this movie?
I that was my first note. I wrote not enough narration with the clap emojis in the middle.
Not enough narration.
Like I thought it was interesting how like you switch off between them and you kind of get the different perspectives, but Hap only narrates in cliches.
Oh, you guys didn't like Hap's narration?
I liked some of it, but when he was doing the wordplay about the word deed.
See, yeah, I feel like the narration styles switched up too much, and if like it had all been like, they should have stuck with like just one narrator. I thought, like, I understand that's probably how it was in the book, where they're probably showing all these different like viewpoints.
I'm sure.
So yeah,
But it
probably had a
jumps
bunch of
around
different
so much in the movie where I don't know
people.
who to like relate to. I don't know who the protagonist of this movie is. That's why I was asking, like, is Carey Mulligan first billed, because she does have the most screen time in this movie,
And
I
it
think.
starts off as her story,
But the
right?
story
Like, yeah.
doesn't really have anything to like what the movie is supposed to be
Right.
about. I feel like maybe not the book, but what the movie that Dee Rees was trying to make is supposed to be about. I don't think it has a whole lot to do with Carey Mulligan's character in this movie.
I agree with that, because I mean, once we kind of got into the thick of it, like I'm fascinated by these kind of looks into like PTSD and psychology of soldiers, just because I mean, like I've never really experienced anything or thought about it that much, and this movie I think was very effective and interesting in that way. But I mean, then there was just like this, I didn't even know really what her story was, kind of once the two men come home from war, because it seemed to be that like she settled down and married, but she was secretly still in love with
the brother.
Jamie,
Yeah,
thank
Jamie.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah.
And, like I can imagine that probably works really great in a novel where it's kind of like this period piece, and it's like, what was life like in Mississippi, like during like the World War era, and being a woman, and there's a lot that's like interesting about the story, but I don't think they really show it in this movie. Like, and they'll just kind of like gloss over it in the narration, like, I got married to him even though I didn't love him. Like,
He was a simple man. What he lacked in face, he made up for in
passion or
solitude.
whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
Did you say solitude?
he left me alone a lot. I love that about him.
he went with his father unexplained to go look at pigs or something.
I didn't realize Jonathan Banks' character's name is actually just Pappy McAllen.
Pappy, yeah.
Like, well, I can't imagine a baby being born being like, Pappy. Like,
Well, I mean,
what, is he already somebody's dad? Like,
I assume
That
that
might
he
just
was,
be what they call him.
yeah,
that's true.
like if he was just like Papa, whatever.
Papa McDaniel. I like Pappy.
But yeah,
It's just, you have your baby. What are you going to name it? Dad.
He's going to be a dad one day.
Hi, Dad.
And here's his sister, Oma.
Don't talk to your dad that way. Which one? This house is a fucking nightmare.
it's also great because I mean, I'm so used to only seeing Jonathan Banks, just being like the disgruntled old man in Breaking Bad or the disgruntled old man in Community. I was like, oh my God, Jonathan Banks. And then like 2 lines later, he was just like spewing just racial epithets. And I was like, oh no.
Yeah. Uh-oh. No, yeah.
Talk about Breaking Bad.
I was concerned almost like for like him in this, like I wanted to be his agent and be like, oh no, like don't play this like mean racist person, but then he actually turns in like a really great performance by the end. I thought he was just
he's
kind
one of
of
the best in this movie, I think.
yeah, but like at first though, I kind of thought he was just like, I'm here to say the N-word, like like just I don't know, and he is there for that. But there's a whole lot more too.
Yeah,
he's
and
a really great character.
It clicked in my head way too late in the movie. I was like, oh, he probably fought the Civil War.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah.
I didn't really put that together. Well, no,
Wait,
probably
no.
he didn't, because he only killed like one.
He would have to be like, I guess he could be like 80. You have to be like 80.
Yeah, because this
Civil
took
War is
place
what,
in 40.
1865.
This took
and
place in
is-
42-ish. Like that's the middle of the movie. Is
Well-
like 1942.
Well, it's when
Before,
America.
during, and after World War II. Yes,
right,
I
yes.
believe the
Okay, so he moves in with them at like 41 because then he turns on the radio and it's like, we're at war now. So that would mean,
Is 41 when we started being at war?
yeah, we were like, there's no war. And then they attack, and then the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor and we were like, now we're in this war.
I always thought that was 44.
That's what I thought too.
44 is D-Day, I guess. Right? So that's just the
I'm terrible with
France
dates. You guys
theater.
could say anything, and I would
I did
be
a
like,
report on
Well,
this.
it's like
a
I
long
know
time
so
ago.
much just because like I went to Jewish day school and we studied the Holocaust. So it's like I know all the Holocaust stuff perfectly, but then everything else I'm like, I don't know. They didn't come for us until 45.
They
so
didn't care about us until.
all I'm trying to say is that.
there is something where, I mean, what initially starts like the Jamie and who's the other character that goes to war? Runsell, or is that?
Not Ra. It starts with an R. It's not my name.
I have it written down somewhere.
Is it Runsell?
I think Ronsell.
Yeah. I don't know. There's some sort of like, I feel like Pearl Harbor kind of like spins them out into like, I gotta go fight this war kind of.
Yeah, I guess my question though is was Pearl Harbor 41 or 44?
I don't know. But that was like their
The
like,
movie said 1941 when
Okay.
he turns on the radio and they're saying that they attacked our base. I also agreed. I thought, okay, 1941 was Pearl Harbor. 1944, I think, was Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure because that was
I
the
think
whole
44
thing.
is also D-Day though, so maybe we were just in the Pacific Theater for a while.
Who knows? Yeah.
Someone comment and school us on our history lesson about World War II.
Someone go to Wikipedia.
As if
World
we don't
War
have enough
II.
World War II movies
and I know
this
what you're
year.
thinking. Wait, aren't you guys on Wikipedia to tell us information about this movie? Yes, we are, but we're not.
Yeah, I'm not. No, yeah, I'm not gonna click
Okay,
away from what I'm
okay,
looking at
pal.
now, guy. Yeah, but like what we were talking about before, I feel like Carey Mulligan. I don't think there's any. I mean, I feel like she has to be first billed because she's
in it the most. I guess I disagree with the choice to make
No,
her.
I think she's just the most recognizable name probably in this movie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
say so.
Maybe or just
Because
like
they couldn't really top
respected
bill Mary J.
actress.
Blige.
Right? Yes. They'd be like, "Mudbound, is that her new single?" But yeah, no, I don't think there's really any like main character in this. Obviously, I think it's just like a bunch of people's stories that are intertwined.
I think it suffers from that though, I guess is my point. That
Yeah, no, I mean, I can understand where like that's a common structure in a book. In a book,
Ooh, who's this character?
and it works in a book where you have
who am I talking to here?
when you have like a whole chapter to be like, what is it like to be Hap? What is it like to be Ronzell? What is it like to be Laura and Jamie and Henry?
Yeah, because books do that a lot. Where I love that when they have kind of like these protagonists that just kind of like keep circling around.
But like in this, when
It
you
doesn't
only
translate.
you only have one scene with like some of these characters, or like a couple scenes of narration, and you may see these characters later on, but like we only get to know their inner thoughts for like one or two scenes. Like I particularly liked Hap's narration, and I just kind of wish that he would have been the narrator of the rest of the movie, just because I felt like it really set like a good tone, and it just felt like narration more than the other ones, which felt like just reading out of a book.
It felt definitely more like
it fit film more, I thought. Him narrating, and I think he has a great narration voice.
He
too.
definitely does.
He has one of my favorite performances in this movie. Because then you have characters that are bad at narration in this that are narrating. Like Jason Clarke is a fantastic actor, but he can't narrate for shit. He doesn't have the right voice for it.
Wait, which one was Jason Clarke?
He's Henry.
Okay.
Laura's wife,
Older
Carey
brother,
Mulligan's wife.
yeah.
Yeah, and like he's a great actor. I've loved him in like everything he's been in, but he's just not a great narrator. And like it's just not his strength. So to ask him to narrate and to ask even like Mary J. Blige, like I think she's pretty good in this movie, and she's probably gonna get nominated. But I think the narration is like her weakest part in this movie. Like,
Well, because she doesn't really have a huge role in the actual movie.
That's what I was confused about. Like, I was like, man, like, she's probably gonna be like, I don't know. I just expected almost a bigger part from her, just because she is getting like all these nominations, or at least buzz around being nominated. Where I feel like she just kind of pulls her own weight like everyone else does, you know?
and she's not bad. I think a lot of it is just excitement of like, it's Mary J. Blige. She's acting. Oh, she's actually not bad. So she must be like amazing. Like we kind of just heighten it, that little bit because the expectations were maybe a little bit lower for her because
You know what takes, like, very few things took me out of this movie, but what kind of took me when she's wearing, like, those sunglasses, like, in the first and last scene when they're kind of, I was just kind of like,
there's a lot about it that feels really like very rural, like early days rural, and then you forget that like, oh, like we're not that long ago.
yeah.
Well, wait, let's talk about that.
Okay.
Because they have they do the classic thing where they show the last scene
Right. In
without
media
context
res.
in media res. Thank you. And I did not think it made sense for this.
Yeah, it was kind of a stretch. Really, it's just it almost like, yeah, it's the having that scene in the beginning and the end really only proves like, man, what a shitty thing to ask of Hap. You know, like it's just kind of like
it doesn't really add anything.
That's all. Yeah.
Like, I think it could have been interesting, or it could have worked if maybe they staged it differently. So you see it at the beginning more from and the white family's point of view, and then at the end you see it from the black family's point of view, and kind of because the white family seems to be they lead the beginning of the story, but then as you see the guys go to war and all this stuff, and it kind of shifts more towards them, and I think that would have been a more interesting way to do it, so the audience kind of makes a connection, like, oh, okay, we're seeing that part again, rather than just like, oh, they just copied and pasted this from before.
Yeah, and the beginning also has some. This movie, I don't know, maybe it got less dark, but it's just something about the color quality. I was trying to watch it on this TV, and my girlfriend has like these kind of like sheer kind of material blinds, and there was so much sunlight coming in, like it was so dark, like I couldn't see what was happening.
I had
to
turn all the lights off in my apartment to watch it.
It was just like they just put like fucking such like a shade of dark on like or at least those beginning scenes or whatever. But there's some scenes where I was like, this is gonna make sense later, like when I feel like Jamie thinks that Henry left him to drown like in the grave, and I was like, like I wonder what this is gonna kind of like refer back to. And there's never really, I don't know, that's just kind of a scene like that's really cool. Like imagine drowning in the grave that you dug for your father. Like that's really like great imagery, but I thought that was going to come and mean something later.
Yeah, it almost seemed like they wrote it in terms of what we see on screen in chronological order, and then forgot to come back and like pick up that thread that they put down there. Like,
Also, this is completely off topic, but I was looking at my notes. There's a shot where a little girl just eats a spoonful of mud.
Yeah.
I missed that part.
What was that?
It's the family that it's the other white family that I don't like those characters.
Cut that out of this script. There's so much.
Because she walks over and she has a knife,
and she's
like, he's with her right now. He stabbed her 17 times. Or she stabbed him 17 times.
And then there's kind of like an overhead shot, and they drag him away. There's
it was a beautiful shot. I love that.
Blood or whatever, but it's just kind of like, I don't know. What was the point of that?
It's compelling in a vacuum. Like, I like that interaction. I like that idea of like, you know, what do you do in that situation?
About them so long ago, because it was like, okay, they're
all I could think about was their children eating mud.
Yeah,
well, that was so weird.
That scene.
Like it was implying that like these kids are so hungry that they're just kind of playing outside, and like the one girl's just like
eats a spoonful of mud, and then she looks at the camera.
Does she?
I think she does.
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah, back to the movie, asshole.
But yeah, like you
Mudbound.
For your consideration. I don't know why she's speaking like a full-grown man. But yeah, like I could definitely like cut out that entire. Like those characters didn't need to be there. There could have just been the one sharecroppers, and that was it. Because they added nothing really to the story.
It was. I thought there was going to be something a little more compelling. I thought there was going to be something a little more compelling where it was just kind of like, you know, Henry has to like fire this guy, and he's like, please, like nobody else is gonna like hire me this late in the fucking season. My family's gonna starve to death. And then the wife comes over and she's like, please, like make your husband like hire my husband back. And then like radio silence, and then like, I'm fucking 9 months pregnant and I got a knife and I'm gonna go kill my husband because he's cheating on me. It was just like there was no. It's set up.
He's raping the kids, is what it was.
Right? Wait, what?
No,
he was cheating on her.
He said
she says a line where she says he's starting in on her now. Like the way she words it, I'm fairly positive that the implication was that he is abusing the children.
I didn't get that at
That's
all.
why I think she was so down to kill him. It wasn't like, oh, he's a. I'm fairly positive.
Okay, I
There's
thought
something
it-
about the way she words them where she's like, he did whatever, and he's starting on like the younger one now, essentially.
Oh wow.
She does have a
Whoa.
line where she's
Dark.
like, he's with her right. That's why she's so down to kill him. I'm saying it's compelling in a vacuum. I think it makes sense. I just don't know what it has to do with the rest of the movie.
Why is he in town?
Because
Doing that.
that's
Is he in town?
That's
Yeah.
what I thought she said, that she was in town because she had to borrow
she-
the pickup truck, and
She needs a ride from her
and
to
Carey
get
Mulligan
into
is like, I'm not
town.
allowed to drive because my
I thought
husband
he was
got
like
mad.
I thought he was like seeing a woman on the side who lived in town.
Oh, maybe I misheard it. I hope it's not that, because that's less compelling if it's just, oh, my husband's cheating on me, I'm going to go kill him.
I'm pretty sure it was husband's cheating.
Yeah.
Because I was kind of like, oh, this is interesting. I wonder how this is going to tie into the, main storyline later. This, like, fucking, like, pedophilic, like, sharecropper guy.
If that's the case, I feel bad for making fun of that girl for eating mud.
I mean, I guess maybe the idea is, like, he's cheating on her when he could be working. I don't know.
That
Trauma shows itself in weird
I
ways.
mean, honestly, that kind of tracks more that he is cheating on somebody in town, because it's like, because he didn't have work, he started drinking more because he has no prospects. And so, like, when you drink more, you get more loosey goosey and blah blah blah. Yeah. Also, Henry punished Carey Mulligan by not having sex with her, which, like, that's a weird punishment.
yeah.
She was like, it did mean it shouldn't be a big deal, but it was fun.
Yeah.
That was
she's like-
essentially her narration.
Yeah,
for
it was kind of like, okay, this is the least of your problems, really. It's that, like, this buffoon doesn't have sex with you every
Maybe
night.
It's white privilege.
Well, you know what? Maybe that actually, honestly, maybe that's part of it. Is that, like, they're showing Carey Mulligan, and she's like, "Oh my god, it's so boring around here." And then Hap is like, "I broke my leg again."
to shoot my best mule.
Oh, and he's like, "You can rent a mule from me."
Oh, it's so, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I know we've seen, what was that documentary where it was about, that came out last year, where it was just kind of like, after we got rid of slavery, we
13.
just kind of like started this, building jails and kind of putting them back to work like
Well,
that.
it's also
Like,
interesting because, like, this era, you kind of see it either from, like, specifically, like, the war zone, or you see it in, like, New York or something, or like the South, but in the big cities. Like, my grandmother grew up in Montgomery, Alabama, so, like, those kind of areas and stuff. But I mean, you don't really see a lot of stories in, like, very rural areas where it's like people aren't that outright mean to each other. I mean, except for Jonathan Banks. Oh man. But it was definitely, that was probably one of my favorite parts of this movie, is that this felt like a different perspective and a different view of that era.
I really like the way this movie handles racism, just because I feel like we've seen so many movies that have been sort of like Oscar baity that are about racism,
like
where
hidden
it's just-
figures.
where it's just as black as white,
Or Crash.
as black.
Crash is on a whole other level.
other decade.
I'm very vocal about how I don't like Crash, just because it's so Oscar baity and, like, very
Over
much
the
like,
top and-
it's like at the end of every scene, the characters look to the camera and say, "Get it?" And I was in a lift one time. I was in LA and I was in a lift, and I was talking to my friend about how much I don't like the movie, and the lift driver is like, "Oh, I really like that movie." And then we just had this passive aggressive argument.
Did that win in 2005?
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah. I mean, I remember liking it at 15, but looking back on it now,
I forget
I'm like,
what it
oh.
lost to, but there was some other movie that year where it was like, "Oh, that's crazy that it didn't win." While we're talking, I'm going to look that up because it's going to drive me crazy. But this is definitely a lot better than
like
Crash.
it handles it in like a more subtle way, where like it's not a movie about slaves, but it's about sharecroppers, which is in its own right like it's still sort of like a racist system where, like, yeah, maybe they're not directly ordering you what to do and they're not whipping you in every scene, but they have the power and they're able to push you around. And that mule scene is the perfect example of it, where like, it's still a business transaction, but he has the power to be like, no, yeah, you have to rent this mule for me because you have to finish my crops in time. So we're going to, like, basically like dock your paycheck for a couple of like weeks so that you can rent this mule for me. And it'll be good for your family though. So it's fine. Like,
And I think that's more powerful than like anything like 12 Years a Slave
Yeah.
or something, for example, because again, for white people or anyone who didn't like indoor slavery in particular, like all of a sudden you're able to identify like, oh, like I work and I can kind of like picture like how like if somebody told me this, like, you know, I don't know. And also we live in like modern America where obviously there's not outright slavery. Like it's kind of more of this just kind of like hidden kind of pushing people
there's a
around.
ton of examples of that in this, like when Carey Mulligan pushes the Mary J. Blige character to be the maid, and she's kind of like, well, it means more money for your family, and like she doesn't technically force her to do it, but she doesn't really give her an option. And she kind of just pushes this argument on her, even though it's going to take her away from her own family. So she's trying to be like, oh, it's going to help your family, but it means she's not at home like caring for her own kids, and you're going to be here caring for my kids.
You know, my favorite narration is when before that scene when the kids do have like the whooping cough or whatever, and then she gets in the car with her husband or whatever, and then she starts to do a narration about how her mom was kind of like the help for like some other family. And I don't know exactly what she says, but it almost made me like cry. It was just like, my mom was just like fucking blue from the minute she woke up to like when she went to sleep. But like, I like understand why she did this kind of. And I was just, like that was super sad.
And then I think like even like the way that they have, like there are definitely people who are just outright racists in this movie, obviously, because the KKK's in it. But they kind of like ease us in that maybe that's not the right word, but they show the different degrees of it, that like there are even varying degrees to being like a complete bigoted racist, where like it starts with like Jonathan Banks' character just not wanting to ride home with Hap in the truck,
right? And
then he starts like using the N-word, you know, very profusively, and then like he tells Ronzel to make sure he uses the back door and he can't use the front door. And these are all things that happen before we even get to like obviously the big climactic scene with like the, you know, almost lynching that happens in the end.
And there's also kind of like there's Pappy kind of, who's like very outright about it, kind of like when he's trying to like walk out the front door, and then there's kind of like Henry, who kind of comes in and like
you don't want any trouble.
Like he tries to kind of reason with him, but he's also just like a fucking dick too. But he's not coming out right and being racist. I have a question, as long as we're going like over logistics of pregnant lady with the knife.
Oh, right.
And what was happening with that family when Jamie comes home from war and he's telling war stories, and Pappy's like really like pressing him on like, how many people do you think you killed, yada yada yada, and he's like, well, more than one, like kind of, and like that triggers Pappy to get like really pissed and like walk away or something. And I couldn't really figure out like, was that like later, like when all's said and done, was that implying that maybe like he had killed like a black man or something, or I just like didn't really know, or was that just a...
No, because I think he says more than 3 or something like that. I feel like it was a higher number than 1. I could be wrong.
I think it was one.
I think he throws out like 3 before, but then the button of the scene is he goes more than 1.
More than 1.
But I think the whole point of it was just because he was so high up, like he knew that he was causing a lot of damage, but he was separated enough that he couldn't give a number.
Right.
And that kind of sets him off.
It's more supposed to tie into when he does finally kill Pappy in the end. He looks him in the eye. And
right.
It's supposed to be more of a thematic tie-in, I thought.
Definitely. But he is implying that Pappy has killed one person.
But he means in war, though.
And...
Because Pappy served in a war, too.
And that's why I guess
he talks about
Pappy's...
like, I at least looked them in the eye when I killed them.
That's why I guess that Pappy served in
in
the Civil War. But then when we were doing the math earlier, like that was in the 1860s. So there's no way that Pappy served.
So World War I?
Probably World War I.
Yeah,
World War I, he might have been a more commanding officer, because he would have been in probably his mid-30s or 40s by that point.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that makes sense. Yeah.
I really like that dinner scene between the two of them, and the way that it ties in later on. That's just kind of a nice
and it's also
bow on that whole theme.
It ties in this other theme, like, why can't people just let these soldiers hang out for a little while? They came home from war, and like a couple days later, like Pappy is just like, oh my god, you've never accomplished anything.
they're war heroes for like 2 hours.
Or even then, like Ronzell's family, like every time he like walks out the door, they're like, "Where are you going? And then, is he okay? I'm so worried about
Mary J.
it."
Blige is like, Ronzell, can you help your father and help your siblings work in the house? And he's like drenched in blood coming. He like brought sugar for everybody. That's not good enough.
I do appreciate that this movie sort of was able to avoid the like white savior complex movie.
Oh my God, yeah.
That I think we see in a lot of other movies where like, I mean, we bring this up all the time on the podcast, but like in 12 Years a Slave, you have like the Brad Pitt character who just like magically doesn't see race in the South. And it's just kind of like, yeah, like I'm going to help you guys. Like I'm going to help you escape. Like this is the right thing to do. And all men are equal and blah, blah, blah.
I closed my eyes. It was like he was here. Hey, everybody, it's me, Brad Pitt.
Hey, I'm a man of this time, and I like really understand what's going on here, like, you know, socially, economically. But what? Slavery's happening. Oh no!
And now we're gonna kill us some Nazis.
That's so bad. Oh, that's so bad. I feel really bad about seeing all this.
Now you're just Owen Wilson. Wow! Can you believe there was slavery? Wow! Ka-chow.
Wow, we enslaved an entire other race. Wow.
I also looked it up, and the movies that lost to Crash for Best Picture were Brokeback Mountain, Capote, Good Night and Good Luck, and Munich.
Those are all really great films.
Capote's the only one I haven't seen out of those.
I haven't seen it, but I saw that video where it was that accent expert breaking down different movie accents and impressions, and he was like, yeah, he's spot on with this. And then Philip Seymour Hoffman is like, I need to see Capote so I can do a better impression, but so far it's just like,
That's not far off.
I wrote an article.
We brought in the top dialect analyst in the world. All right, Philip.
Give him the Oscar.
Peter Griffin? Lois, it's me, Capote.
Oh boy.
Yeah, let me look at my notes some more because I forget if I'm missing anything.
I mean, there's. Oh, okay, go on.
Well, yeah, I mean, talking about the white sort of savior complex. Like there is a white character in this who, at a certain point, stops sort of seeing race. But I think
Who, Jamie?
Yeah, but they back that up in terms of, and it's not like they're even like forgiving it, or I mean, forgiving is not the right word, but there's kind of like it's tainted in a little way because he could only get to that point because he was saved by a black pilot in the war, and it's like he couldn't really get to that through his own, you know, moral superiority like they do in these other movies with white savior complexes. And then even him, like, you know, even through his friendship with Ronzell, there's the scene where he's like practical joking Ronzell and like tries to run him down with the car as like a joke, and like he thinks it's hilarious, and Ronzell obviously doesn't see the humor in that, and like that's
and
a
then you
perfect
see
example.
that scene later, and
Yeah, that's a
that
perfect
was
example
great.
of like Jamie's like privilege in that point where he's just kind of like, what? It's funny, like why are you not laughing at this? And he can't see that like,
Jamie's played by
that's a
Seth Rogen.
terrifying thing to happen. And then it does happen later on. Like I just think that's a great example of, you know, you can have characters that are get to a higher place or a better moral understanding in a movie without having them be just like these perfect saviors that come down and don't see race, like Emma Stone and The Help or Brad Pitt. And,
Fun fact,
12
I
Years a
watched The
Slave.
Help only because I wanted to understand the context of the shit pie scene.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's long.
And then even in the end, Jamie can't even really he doesn't really save Ronzell in the end. He fails to save him from, you know, I mean, he saves him, I guess, from being
Killed.
completely lynched
I was
in the end.
That scene confuses me because like,
Why would they care?
no. They come. Jamie arrives. Pappy, Gold Pappy takes maybe wakes him up or brings him in or takes a burlap sack off his head. No, that's Ronzell. But he's like, anyway, they're just kind of like, oh, we're about to hang him because he's like had an abomination, a child with a white woman or whatever, and we're getting ready to hang him. And then obviously
Jamie tries to like out racist them. He's like, wait, but she
yeah. I like that he reasons with
yeah, but she's French.
yeah. It's just kind of
I think she was German, actually. So that was his
he was
reasoning.
German.
Was
and
like,
he was just kind of like, like we're showing.
and now she'll have like a reminder of him wherever she goes. And
I was also so sure that Jamie was going to choose balls. I don't know why, but I was like, oh, he's going to cut off his balls.
Oh, that's what I would go for. Like, what? Well,
I mean, I knew he wasn't going to do eyeball.
Oh, right.
That's crazy.
But leading up to that moment, like, what changed? Like, the KKK is so hellbent on hate that they're just ready to, like, kill this man. They're giving everybody of color, like, such a hard time. That dang KKK. But anyway, Jamie gets knocked out at some point, and he wakes up, and the KKK is like,
oh, good. Now he's awake. All right, what should we do?
well, no. But they're also kind of like, maybe we're over-exaggerating with hanging him. No, well,
look, we're all a little fired up in there.
What's the difference between a dead person? Like, they're letting him live. Like, it's such a bizarre, like, twist of fate, and I don't really know why it happened. Like,
I guess it was more to be a punishment for Jamie for befriending him.
I don't know.
But you would think that killing him would be the greater punishment, even in that instance.
Like
for Jamie,
the situation somehow de-escalates. Like, it was like, honestly,
in Jamie's absence too. Jamie gets knocked out, and you would think that it would continue escalating.
Yeah.
Again.
What do you think happened
He's
between
not there
Jamie getting knocked out and him waking up? Just the KK guys, just like having awkward chit chat, like,
guys.
So you live around here your whole life, or
or they're being like, guys, I think we're being too hard on him, man. Kill him.
We don't even know that lady. I mean,
let's write down a list of things that we could not live without. Eyeballs. Thank you, Jessup.
What about regular balls? Yeah, regular
oh my
balls.
gosh, the regular balls. Both the balls covered.
Is there a third ball to kind of give like a pattern to all this? Ear balls? No, what?
A third pair of balls. Well, your tongue kind of like a flattened two balls, kind of.
You ever go to the circus and there's that guy that has a split tongue that kind of looks like a ball sack?
Yeah. Okay. Oh wait, he's waking up. Okay, Jamie.
It was
Here,
a
guys,
weird.
hide. It'll make it more intense.
We've de-escalated the situation since you've been knocked out. And
If we knock you out again, I think we might just be able to let him off with a warning.
okay, now that you've awoken a second time, Indian burn, noogie,
or purple nurple.
Or two swirlies.
I think we have some notes for this movie.
we did.
For that last scene,
D. Rees. 3 white guys are on the phone, and they've got some ideas about your film that you've already put out.
do they have a movie podcast? Yes. Okay then.
Oh, put them through. That is a funny joke.
I'm glad that we finally admitted that we are 3 white guys talking about this movie. I was like, when is that going to come up naturally?
Oh, it's just like overplayed at this point in this podcast.
We've already done so many movies where
it's just like a majority of our hosts too are like white men. We're like, okay, guys, and to switch things up, we got Craig. White last name. I don't know. I couldn't think on my feet.
Robinson.
Robinson. Yeah.
Craig Robinson.
it's an actual person.
Yeah. You guys got Craig He
Whoa, Craig Robinson's been here.
My freshman year, he performed at my school for like welcome week, and half the audience walked out. It was
During his performance, wow.
It was not good.
Poor
Like
Craig.
he's like kind of doing musical comedy, but it like wasn't like it was in the beginning. Do you remember?
Knock knock. Who's there?
Do you remember the beginning of This Is the End when Craig Robinson is like on the keyboard and he's like singing like "Take your panties off"?
Yeah.
He just did that for I think for 6 minutes.
No.
He
that
did a
one
bunch. He
song.
would do a bunch of musical stuff on The Office, like they were pushing it too hard. Like Daryl plays the keyboard.
Yeah.
Do you remember when Daryl plays the keyboard?
Yeah, like
here's Daryl playing
they're
the
like,
keyboard.
oh no,
again.
the karaoke machine's broken. It's okay, I have a keyboard in my office. Okay.
So yeah, that was weird, and then it was kind of also weird that they tried to be like I mean, I fell for it. I kind of just like, they gave him like the choice of 3, and then the family comes to like tie him, like cut him down, and I was like, oh, he's dead. Like, that's what I thought.
I also thought he was dead.
And I mean, that's the point that I think that's definitely the intention of the filmmaker. because then they kind of
They're hiding him
They
too,
hide
so
him.
they want everyone else to think he's dead as well.
right, and
So they can, allow him to have a new life somewhere else.
In Germany. Oh, I love that last little spoiler, that last scene at the end where he gets to see the lady from Germany, and I just perked up when you see the little boy run out, and he's obviously biracial, and you're just like, yay! Finally, something worked out.
Yeah, and he's like, I wish they cut off my balls.
Jesus Christ.
One kid is bad. One kid is enough for me, honestly. I really wish I had my tongue. I picture
Thanks
that.
a lot, Jamie.
Fuck you, Jamie. I feel like that's going into a territory of another, like...
Yeah, that doesn't sound like someone without a tongue.
I was trying to press my tongue to the bottom of my mouth, and now people are gonna, like, cut that, like, out of context. They'll be like, and listen to, like, Joe's really insensitive, retarded, mentally challenged.
I mean, now that you
impersonation.
named it, people are going to be like, oh yeah, that is what that
Yeah,
was.
okay, I couldn't place it, and I love how he said retarded and then corrected to mentally challenged, like,
It'd be funny
very quickly.
if that was your voice, like if he didn't have an eye. Hey, that.
Where you gotta go?
Hey, I can't catch a ball as well anymore.
Tongue's not that bad, though. Like, that's second on the list. You
You
can adopt children. I don't need balls.
Also, isn't the... No, I was thinking of the liver, because I know, like, the liver, it's like if you cut part of it, like, it can, like, kind of regenerate and fix itself, and I was thinking that that's what the tongue is, but that's
No,
not...
that's the lizard from Spider-Man.
Right. Well, no, you know what I was thinking of? Because, like, when people get a tongue piercing and they take it out, it can, like, seal up within, like, an hour or something like that.
Oh, yeah, the stuff in the mouth heals up, like, the fastest of anywhere on the body.
Yeah,
But you can't just grow a tongue.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was trying to think of.
And getting better.
Hello, child.
Great call, Jamie. They would have just like thrown in some random dialogue earlier in the movie, like, "Did you know the human tongue can regenerate?" I didn't. Why are you bringing that up?
We're digging
Jamie, pick the tongue.
There's like a weird like insert scene like early in the movie, like I keep this prized tongue in my house.
Perfectly pickled in this jar.
Also, a very stray observation from this movie, and I love when it clicks in my head, but I'm hearing like stock audio, and when Jamie first returns from war, and everybody's like, "Oh my god!" and he like hugs the kids, and they run off out of the scene. You can hear that really specific like stock audio of children laughing, like where it's like,
Oh yeah.
like that. You have to, if you rewatch that scene, it'll if you're listening, it'll be crystal clear, because you're just like, oh, I've heard that in every single like movie where they're like, okay, we're at a park now.
These kids in the background.
No Wilhelm scream though.
Y'all boys ready to get for some fingers?
Some fingies, yeah.
Fingies.
I got him.
I can go first. I don't have a whole lot more to say about this. I'm kind of like middle of the road about this movie. Like there's some scenes that I really, really enjoyed, and I think that Dee Rees is a very capable filmmaker, and I'm very excited to see what she does next, because I think it's a very beautiful movie, and I just wish she could have maybe assembled the parts of her beautiful movie in a more logical and beautiful fashion themselves. Like everything in a vacuum, I think, is a fantastic scene. You know, she directs these actors and actresses so well. She crafts these really beautiful scenes. Like, you know, she pulled together this great team. Like, I was listening to the Director's Cut podcast with her, and she's talking about how like the lady who did the soundtrack is like a friend of hers, and I really love the soundtrack for this movie. Like they were talking about how they were consciously trying to avoid being like the typical, like, you know, fiddle and like flute, like, you know, rural music, and it's also not like, you know, typical 40s, you know, swing music playing,
right?
Besides maybe the one time when they're at the club. But like it's this almost, like, she described it as like tribal music. Like that's not really the right word for it, but I get what she's going for, where it's like these like really low like cello notes, and it's just like dark and ominous, and it's, you know, using strings without even going into like classical or like a classic, more traditional Hollywood type score. And I think that's, she makes a lot of great choices in this movie, and I just wish she would have had the sense to maybe like kill her darlings more in terms of the novel, because I think she loves the novel, and I think she wasn't willing to sort of restructure it in how would this be better suited in a film, because I'm sure all this stuff is great in the novel, but
I'm kind of curious to read it now.
Same, yeah.
But the movie she ended up making is not really about Carey Mulligan's character. It's not even really about Jason Clarke's character. He's kind of just a secondary character to this, and it's really about these men coming home from war. And we don't even really have any narration from Garrett Hedlund's character, and like we do get scenes where he's talking and giving parts of himself to Ronzel when they're drinking together, but we don't get to know like his inner thoughts from his narration. So he already feels like a second class character in terms of this movie, and we don't even really get a whole lot of narration from Jason Mitchell as well. Like, we get the majority of it from Carey Mulligan and maybe Mary J. Blige, and then Hap narrates a lot as well, and then that awful narration by Jason Clarke. So I just wish she would have had this.
I don't remember his narration.
I can't remember. He was doing an impression of Pappy, which is why I hated the narration so much.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It just really took me out of the movie and the element. But yeah, I mean, she clearly knows what she's doing, and I think she'll do a better job her second time around. It doesn't seem like she has a whole lot of credits to her name thus far. But she's clearly very capable. There's a lot of beauty in this movie. But I just wish she could have, made it a little more streamlined and been like, what am I really trying to say here? Because I know she has a message. I've heard her talk about the message, but then she throws all this other stuff in there that confuses it, like the pregnant woman scene. That's I cannot find a justification for that to be in this movie, from like any angle, like even from like the Carey Mulligan angle. Like it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Like if those characters had just kind of like popped up in the background, like they're clearly just struggling, or they're going to ask for something, and they see just like Hap just working by himself in the land, and you kind of saw that like more desperation in them, being like, oh, so you really are just throwing us out on the ground to the curb.
Like if Mudbound was like more just strictly about life in Mississippi during the war era, rather than like two men coming home from World War II and how do they adjust to life after war. Because I felt like I didn't even get enough scenes of like what is PTSD manifest in these guys for. Like we have a few moments, like like the car backfiring, like that's a pretty good physical moment. That was great. And like Jason Mitchell's like hand shaking and them kind of relating over that. But other than that, we just kind of have them like meeting up and drinking, and it doesn't really seem that bad. Like they find companionship so quickly after coming home from war that I don't really feel the struggle of them adjusting to civilian life after that. Like they seem like they're having a pretty good time.
But I think that's also part of it, is that they are they're just kind of being with each other, and that's kind of helping treating it. And I think kind of like by being in the presence of somebody who went through what they're going through, they almost don't even have to address it, and they can kind of soothe each other.
What's going on under the surface? Yeah. I mean, I can maybe see that, but I feel like they don't really show that.
Also, they both drink a lot.
Yeah.
More Jamie.
Jamie's definitely a broken man.
He's like, come on, drink some. And he's like, I don't know. And Jamie's like, do it.
Jamie's like, no, you crying over spilled milk, right?
Oh, that was weird. And was that was like right after he built a shower, right? That's a little wild.
I don't know.
He's like, how much do I owe you for your milk? That's not the point. It seems like the point.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to give it 3 fingers out of 5. It's very beautiful. I'm moved and touched by it in a lot of places, but I do think it's flawed on an organizational level. So 3 fingers from me.
All right. I'll go next. I've said pretty much a lot of what I wanted to say. At first, I thought the war scenes were kind of like, I don't know. But I feel like I don't know what the budget was for this film. I'm sure I could look like right now. But I don't know. Some of the war scenes like looked really good. Like they played with
10 million.
Okay, that's not a lot. They played kind of like with what they had, with just like, oh, he's inside of a tank, or oh, he's inside of like a plane, kind of. And the one scene that like I was like very impressed with and like really got me was like when he is recalling that kind of like Red Tail like coming in to save him, and the plane's just kind of like, like just like ever so slightly kind of like wobbling like in the wind, and then he does like the salute and like flies away. I loved the way that
kind of
looked.
reminded me of the scene in Fantastic Mr. Fox when they like drive up at the end and they see the wolf and he just puts the fist up. Just that little like silent like recognition from afar.
But man, this was hard to watch though. This was like, I mean, we haven't had a film like this year, I think, that we've reviewed, where it's just like, some of the Oscar films can be like, man, shit just is working out for nobody. This is just like truly like just bad shit. I don't know, because there's not really a lot of joy in this movie. It's just bad things happening. Why do you want to move to the farm? Like, maybe I don't understand the economics of the 1940s, and maybe that's kind of like almost to be like what it is to be like an entrepreneur now. Like, oh, I want to like go.
Yeah, because he doesn't have to work on it. He has sharecroppers that do all the work for him, and he just pays them a little bit.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it's working out for them.
No. Yeah. Obviously. Yeah. No, that's just so weird to me that like that's like the lucrative like.
It's also because when we are introduced to him, he's like an engineer, and
right?
Like, you would think like during like World War II or I mean, I guess when he moves to the farm, it's not World War II yet, but when we're not that far away from World War I, you would think, you know, the industrial boom would still be going on, and we're still have factories where engineers are needed to design mechanical things. Yeah,
it's just so confusing. I mean, it's just like it's blindsiding to me as that is, I'm sure, for like the Carey Mulligan's character, kind of like it's just so fucking random. Why go to a farm that just looks so shitty and stupid, and I don't know. Anyway, I really enjoyed this movie. I really didn't know anything about this movie going into it, honestly. I just knew Mary J. Blige was in it, and that was it. And I think I saw the poster on Netflix once or twice, and I was like, oh, it's probably about slavery because it's going to be at the Oscars. But I was pleasantly surprised. Again, there was a more sort of nuanced kind of view of racism in America that didn't have to be like, whoosh! You know, like, get back to work! Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. So, so I'm... It's something you brought up earlier off mic. It's kind of a touchy subject, and again, we are white guys or whatever. But there seems like there's a very authentic way that everybody in this movie says the N-word, like the white people. It just, instead of like a hard R kind of, it just kind of like rolls out the side of the mouth. We were comparing it
to Hateful Eight, which we lambasted for their use of the N-word much because they would like really lean into that hard R, and it was just like, you can just imagine the actors reading the script and just reading it as like word, N-word, word, and they just put so much emphasis on it, where Jonathan Banks, the best part of his performance is that like he doesn't really lean into that hard R. It's almost like an AHR the way he pronounces it, and it just rolls off his tongue like something that he would just say every day and not even give any thought to. And that's what it really is when it comes down to it, for people in Mississippi who are in the KKK. They don't think twice about using a word like that.
Right.
And that feels more authentic than like shocking us with hard R.
Yeah, because it's not like some guy leaning in. Like even the confrontation scene where it's the whole front door back door thing, like they don't like lean in or like surround him and they're like, you better go towards the back door, and they like, I can't think of really any use of the hard R. Like when I was watching it, I was thinking to myself like, oh, they're all using the AH.
No, it really seems like it's a part of the dialect, and it doesn't seem like it's an actor in 2018 being like, or 2017, that's like, this is the part where I say the N-word. I'm really going to put some emphasis on it. I'm going to say it like it's pronounced, kind of. I don't know. It was a really nice detail. But I've said everything I want to say about this film. I'm going to give it 4 fingers because I really I enjoyed myself. I'd love to see this.
Joe likes watching people suffer.
No, yeah, I had to stop it a few times because I was like, oh my gosh. better go eat more pizza.
So relatable.
Yes.
You should make memes for this podcast, and that'll be the first one.
Do you guys get it? Pizza. Who doesn't like pizza?
I love pizza.
Everybody likes pizza.
Oh my god! Like, I'd rather stay home with my cat than go to a party. All right. Let's. Can we do half?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry,
so
we should have
it's-
explained that. 0 to 5 in increments of half fingers. So
Okay,
you can do
got
0, you can do 4.5.
Yeah, I didn't
whatever.
remember if that's what you guys did.
Ross is like, oh, okay, half finger. I hate this movie.
5.5 fingers. You did it wrong somehow. As I said before, I came into this movie knowing nothing. Like, Netflix didn't even bother. They were like, you won't like this. This is not your movie, Ross. But I very much enjoyed it. So I'm an RA, so I was making a bunch of paper spaceships while I was watching this movie, and I think you both have touched on a lot of things that I would say. I think there are definitely some kind of pacing issues. The director not wanting to take parts out from the book, even if they didn't really necessarily work for a visual medium. Mm-hmm. It's like I don't really watch these types of movies, not because like, oh, as a white male I can't relate to it, but it's just like I mean I'm definitely much more of I have a kids movie podcast. So I'm definitely more into like comedies.
There are a lot
that
of
kind feel
slavery
good.
kids movies.
Oh, we're not going to see Mudbound on Kidflix?
Kids love mud.
Yes.
And eating
They'll
mud.
eat it.
But I mean, I was very happy that I got to see this movie. Except I wasn't hap, so I was trying to think of a joke, but that nothing made sense in my head. Thank you. And just like Patty got killed. I think overall I like this. I don't think it's a movie that I can see myself revisiting anytime soon, just because it is. Yeah. It's a long watch. It's a hard watch. And I mean, the first 35, 40 minutes, I could not tell you what the trajectory of this movie was going to be. Mm-hmm. I think I'm going to sit right in between the both of you, and I'm going to give it 3.5 fingers.
Very cool.
It makes my math real easy.
Yeah.
So that'll come out to 3.5 fingers, obviously. Ross was right.
I predicted it. I mean, I will say on Netflix, I gave it a thumbs up. Because we can only
don't have a 5-star rating anymore. Yeah,
thumbs
You're
down.
gonna get more racism and slavery movies now.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. That's my favorite conspiracy theory. That people are like, "Oh, Netflix changed the rating system because people in the alt-right were starring Amy Schumer's special." It's like
yeah, that's
you
right.
caught us.
The alt-right, not me. After I, not people who watched it. No.
Speaking of Amy Schumer, I'm going to say it. I liked Snatched.
Oh, I did actually hear good things about Snatched.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it was the one with her and Goldie Hawn.
I watched like we were playing it. I was kind of half paying attention to it, but I really enjoed a lot of it.
Yeah,
I loved the brother character. He was like, "Mama."
yeah. Ike Barinholtz.
Yes.
He's in like every like second tier like comedy movie as the like supporting character.
Yeah, that is
comedic
true.
relief in like a comedy movie is Ike Barinholtz.
Well, my family for a couple years we were a Mad TV family, like instead of SNL, and like so. I see all these Mad TV alums now, and I'm like, I'm so glad that they found work after Mad TV.
Is he? I always wonder, is he the guy that's in Rat Race that pierces his tongue?
Ooh, I don't know.
I feel like he
I
might
haven't
not
seen
be,
Rat
but he's
Race
very
since
similar
I was
looking.
6 years old.
Yeah.
All I remember is that Rowan Atkinson is in it. Or am I
yeah.
thinking of It's a Mad World?
No, Rowan Atkinson is in it. Yeah.
Okay, great.
I saw Rat Race in theaters.
I did too.
So yeah, that
And
was,
the Baha Men had that great title song.
Mm-hmm.
Life is nothing, life is nothing, life is nothing but a smack in the face.
where's the Baha Men's Oscar? Huh?
I've looked
For
into
Rat
this.
Race?
Apparently they're releasing new music soon.
Who let the dogs out?
Who let the cats out? It's just like it's a song about just the dwindling bird population.
Once again, we forgot the Rotten Tomato. I didn't read that, right? I'm not going
No, you
crazy.
didn't. You read the IMDb.
Yeah. On Rotten Tomatoes, it had 97 based on 152 reviews, average rating of 8.3 out of 10. The site's critical consensus read, Mudbound offers a well-acted, finely detailed snapshot of American history with whose scenes of rural class struggle resonate far beyond their period setting. I don't know. I struggled with that
What did
so
the
much.
audience give it? Because I know they have the audience rating and the critic rating.
Critic rating is 96% and audience score is 86%.
Oh, critic rating came down.
Oh no.
Really?
I had 97 when I took these notes.
Oh, I thought you were going to say I gave it 1 star, just like Amy Schumer's special. Because I too am in the alt-right. If you don't like Amy Schumer, you're
all
right.
You might be all right.
Are you in the alt-right? Well, then you might just be all right by me.
That's my favorite movie. The kids are alt right.
Yeah. Up for Best Picture. Yeah. I'm just super curious. I mean, I know we want to wrap this up. I'm just like always like, whenever something comes out in on Netflix, I'm always like, how does this, like, I wonder how this would have
who's
done.
watching this compared to what they're watching in the theaters?
Because this was nearly picked up by A24.
Yeah, A24 was bidding for this, and I think Annapurna or something was too. But that's just like the Will Smith, Joel Edgerton, Bright movie or whatever on Netflix. I was reading somewhere, data-wise, that did like, I don't remember, but like I started doing the math of like, okay, what is the average ticket in America cost, and I multiplied that by the amount of people who like watched it, and over like a 3-day period, like the opening weekend, and it came out to like $100,000, like kind of like, I wish there was some way that we could kind of like work this into like the box office. And I also
100,000 or 100 million?
100 million. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna
100,000. Nobody watched it. Will Smith's family watched it.
He does a very sad ha ha.
I liked it, Daddy.
Is that
Jaden or is that Willow?
It was both of them in unison, comforting their dad. And he's like, I don't want to raise these kids. Or what is his whole
Willow
deal?
was like, I'm whip this movie back and forth.
Jaden's like, I look concerned.
He's like, maybe you're the Karate Kid. Speaking of Karate Kid, want to know something crazy that I heard? I don't know if this is actually true, but I heard somewhere that for years at least, when Jackie Chan started doing American films, he didn't speak English yet, so like people would just like give him the lines and he would just like essentially repeat them, like without.
I could believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could sort of believe that. I feel like there's some bloopers in Rush Hour 2 that prove that.
Or
as well.
Shanghai Noon.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that movie.
I do. Yeah.
Just figured out that the title's a pun.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely knew that already too.
Yeah. No, I figured that out when I was a kid, when it came out.
I was like, Shanghai Noon, I got this.
Let's run through some links real quick and then we'll get out of here. Again, for us, always you can find us at howmanyfingerspodcast.com for all our links and needs and all that. And where can we find Kid Flicks?
Yeah, so you can find Kid Flicks on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, at KidFlixPod, KIDFLIX pod, and we're on anywhere you get your podcasts.
Awesome. So search for that. We'll be doing Iron Giant this week when this comes out. Should
Yeah,
be
so-
out already.
Yeah, so go back and listen.
Go back in time and listen to Iron Giant in the future. That made a whole lot of sense. Thanks so much for coming on, Ross.
Thank you so much for having
fun.
me.
This was a really
This was a
great
great
episode.
episode.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah,
have to do
I'll
this
come back
again.
whenever.
Great.
And we'll see how your podcast goes.
Yeah.
Gulp.
We already finished it, guys, and it's great.
It's great, and
We
you have to go
released it
listen
on
to
Monday.
We banked it. We Jonathan banked it.
We didn't use the hard R for Iron Giant. It's Iron Giant.
Let's get out of here. Signing out for How Many Figures the Podcast. I'm Mike.
I'm Joe.
And I'm Ross.
That's how it goes.
And that's how it goes.